Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ingrid's World. My name is Ingrid Paris-Hicklin, and I am the host and executive producer of the show. On this show, meet Serena Wills, who is a poet, author, publishing coach, workshop facilitator, and health and wellness writer. She holds a BA in Policy Studies from Syracuse University, an MPA from Virginia Tech, and an MA in Health and Wellness Coaching, and a postbachelor certificate in Workplace Wellness from Maryland University of Integrative Health. Serena has self-published 3 books. She will talk about these fabulous books on this show. We're very fortunate to have you, Serena, on here because you have a fascinating career. And I mean, really, you really have. And, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ingrid. I really appreciate it.
So let's talk, we talked about your education, your multiple careers. Take us on your journey.
Yeah, I tell people, the career is just a part of your life. Just part of my journey. People should know I live in the Washington, D.C. area, but I am originally from Jamaica, Queens, New York. I'm a native New Yorker. Okay, so, it's in my blood. Moved here in 1997, which it doesn't seem like it's been 25 years, but, and just came down here for a summer job. It was supposed to just be for the summer and fell in love with the D.C. area. From there, I started a 20-year career in the non-for-profit sector. So that was I call it my first half of my career life.
Wow.
Worked a lot in arts education, literacy, after-school programming, grant and proposal writing, nonprofit, you name it, you do it, even from fixing the copy machine sometimes, right? So,
Wow.
But I work for fascinating organizations. I'm so blessed to have had, just that journey. And life, life always takes us down sometimes another path. Sometimes you think you're on your destined path and you have everything, all squared away, you have a plan. And a couple of things happened in my life, a few things. One is I became my mother's caregiver in 2009. She was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, and she thought it was just menopause. Just the symptoms were exasperating, but these symptoms were a lot deeper than menopause. And when we went to the hospital, the second go around is when she was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. And that was August 2009. I was only 34 at the time. Never knew I'd be a caregiver so young in my life. She was only 60, and she passed away 6 months after diagnosis. So from there, I was still in the nonprofit sector. I was already an advocate for GYN cancers because of my own little battle. I had HPV, the human papillomavirus. In the 90s, it had no name. They didn't have a name for it yet.
Right.
But HPV can cause cervical cancer. So I had 2 occurrences of that. Thank goodness it never turned into cervical cancer. And thank goodness the reoccurrence has not happened in over 20 years. Knock on wood. So I was already an advocate for gynecological cancers, but then I took it to another level with ovarian cancer because it is one of the most silent cancers. GYN cancers is also it's the deadliest GYN cancer of them all. And they always say it's a silent killer because the symptoms could be very vague, like cramps. All women have cramps. It could just be, so from there, I made a promise to my mother that I would educate and advocate as long as I have breath in my body. I wrote a lot of poetry at her bedside, and then we'll talk about that later. That later turned into a book. And then my career, was still in the nonprofit sector. I still thought I knew what I was doing. But, volunteer-wise, I was an advocate in educating for gynecological cancers.
Right.
But then I had my own health battle, another health battle. This one was more serious. In September 2012, because September 2022 made 10 years already that I was bitten by a tick and contracted Lyme disease. And my son was only 13 months old at the time. I'm a single mom, and it really hit me like a Mack truck. And I tell people I was a marathon runner. You know, I ran marathons. I was an African dancer. I was very active. I traveled a lot. You know, I went to the gym. I worked out. I thought I was eating as healthy as possible. Learned a lot more about nutrition. But I just went on this sudden detour, you know, with my health, and learned a lot about health and wellness, integrative health, nutrition, mindfulness. I learned a lot about, you know, what grieving was also doing, just holding things in. I went through a lot of trauma.
Right.
You know, I lost my sister in 2007. I lost my mom in 2010, you know, and then now I'm sick, you know, in 2012. And, you know, all of that just really exacerbated the symptoms I had with Lyme disease. The Lyme disease, everybody looks totally different.
Yes.
Mine actually affected my central nervous system.
Wow.
So I actually, to this day, have lesions in my brain, inflammation of the brain. It's a lot better. My brain is healing, but I also had a whole array of symptoms that pretty much led me to being practically bedridden for a month.
Wow. And
I went on this journey to find the right doctor. I was misdiagnosed 10 times. 10 times.
Wow.
9 before the official diagnosis and 1 afterwards, because sometimes doctors just don't want to believe a word you're saying, even though it's on medical record and charts.
Wow.
From there, I learned so much about health and wellness. I was already a servant to my community through the nonprofit area in arena.
Yes.
And I decided to, you know, really, I wanted to do something in health and wellness. I was like, there's so much that I learned, it was just that short time span, you know, of me being diagnosed. I just started learning more about integrative health and what that is. You know, you don't have to always be on antibiotics to, you know, solve every problem.
So
you know, nutrition and everything. So that's how I became a health and wellness coach.
I mean, it's amazing. So it is. So, but you know, I'm so appreciate you giving us the journey about this. Now, is that how Divine Right Wellness came about? Is that?
Yeah. It all came about. And Divine Right was already my stage name from poetry and spoken word artist.
Yes.
So that came about. So Divine Right, and it's spelled WRYTE, was already in place. And then it's funny, I tell people the graduate school I went to, you mentioned, I was actually a patient before a student. That's my story.
No.
They have a nature care center there, and that's where I met my nutritionist and herbalist, not knowing I would eventually go to graduate school there and get a master's, a Master of Arts degree, you know, become a, you know, health and wellness coach. I went back, like you said, I got another certificate. And then I went on to become a national board certified health and wellness coach. But I knew at that time, throughout grad school, I wanted to develop my own practice. And they always tell you with your practices to drill down on your niche, or a few of them. You can't be all things to everybody, you know. But then I decided to add wellness to Divine Right. And, you know, my slogan is, you have the divine right to be well.
Oh,
so,
I love that.
Yeah, everybody has that right to be well.
A divine right to be well. I love that. Well, you know, yeah, and I love what you're doing. Now, take us on that journey of you being a writer, which I am pleased to say I have. Your wonderful book, Crying Tears of Teal. But I would have to tell you, oh boy, what a beautiful book.
Thank you, thank you.
Would it be fair to say that this is like a tribute to your mother? Because I just, I felt as if I was, you know, walking, that you allowed me to walk beside you, reading, you know, your journey.
Yeah,
you know.
It's our journey together and others that I observed along the journey, but mainly hers. And then the last chapter, my chapters are called journeys, as you can see in the book.
Yes.
So the last journey in the book is dedicated to survivors, because I wanted to basically give them a shout out because they survived this cancer. I've met a lot of women who took me in as like their daughter, their niece, their sister, while my mother was going through the battle. But a lot of those poems in that book, a lot of them I wrote at her bedside while she was sick.
No, really?
Yeah, yeah, it was, as an artist, a lot of us just kind of go to our place of peace, and that's my place of peace, is my artistry. And I would bring my laptop or, pen and a pad, and I would just write during the times when she was sleeping or when she was getting chemo, and when she would wake up from a nap or, she would, sleep a lot, especially when she was getting chemo treatments. She would ask me to read to her what I wrote.
Oh,
And over the months, I didn't know it would be a book. I was just writing because I needed an outlet. I was like, okay, I go to church, but I had to switch when I went to church, I'm a Christian, and I couldn't go on weekends anymore because we were long distance. I was in the DC area, my mother was in New York. I was commuting every single weekend
wow.
to New York for 6 months. Sometimes I would go up there for a week, or so. So I started going to sort of church on Sundays. I would go to Bible study on Wednesdays. So that was an outlet. That was, my place of peace as well. But while I was in New York and while I was in that hospital, sometimes it would just get so quiet, between the hospital, the nursing home, you hear the sounds of the machines. And it was like, I'm going to go crazy in here. And I was like, I don't want to leave her side. So I'll just start writing. And like, some years later, actually, well, she told me before she passed away, you must publish those poems because they're going to help you heal when I'm gone. That always hurt. It hurt me to hear that, when I'm gone. And it's going to help other people heal. And she said, you have to share your writing with the world, Serena.
Yes.
So it took time. It was finally birthed and published September 2017. I had a lot of unfinished poems, beginning of 2017. And I was on a mission after I had lost a job that February 2017, that I was going to buckle down and get this book out into the universe. And I wanted to birth it in September because that is the Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. So that is why I'm wearing teal. Teal is the color for ovarian cancer awareness. Thank you. And cervical cancer too is teal. But a lot of those poems were right there at her bedside.
Wow. Yep. Wow. This is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
You.
I love this, what you wrote. I talk to her every day, every night, promising her that one day I'll feel joy again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just kind of would say, I have children, and this is something that I definitely would say to a child of mine. Promise me that you will feel joy again. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you are an amazing, poet.
Thank you.
And I encourage others to read this because it really is absolutely beautiful. You also have written 2 other books, which we're showing on screen. And tell us about the 2 other books. Just, we wish we had more time, but you have 2 other books.
It's okay. It's all right. So Reconstruction, Pieces of Life, Volume 1, that was actually my first book published. That came out June 2014, so it's over 8 years old already.
Wow.
I tell people the quick story behind that. It was originally as a fundraiser. They actually had a fundraiser for an arts organization, and they had literary artists being highlighted. That book was originally in a moleskin journal, and I cut out artwork, and I pieced in the poems together and glued them in. The bidding started at like $5, and my journal sold for $100. And I was like, what happened? Okay, like just what happened?
Wow.
And the woman who got outbidded by seconds, she ran up to me and said, where can I purchase the book? I was like, oh, the book's not out yet. So that was 2008. It took some years. Life happened, between my mom, myself. But when I got sick with Lyme disease, the book was still in my laptop. And I said, if I die today, I have no legacy to leave behind for my son. I have books, but they're on my laptop, and I thought of him. I was like, I need to get these books out. They need to be out into the world and help people, like my mother said. So Reconstruction was birthed first, and then The Awakening is the last book in the series so far. That it came out December 2019, 3 months before we got thrown into a pandemic, and a lot of people said that they were very inspired by The Awakening. The Awakening is a spinoff from Reconstruction. Reconstruction is about someone who basically was in love and kind of lost themselves in love and lost themselves. And they went through the hurt and the pain through a breakup, but at the end, it's about their reconstruction. It's about finding your foundation again, restoration of your spirit and soul, and discovering your passions. So The Awakening picks up where Reconstruction left off. It talks about someone still healing, because healing is forever. It's a forever journey. And life is still being thrown at you. You can't stop it. But The Awakening is, despite everything I'm going through, sickness, death, we had, a young lady in my family, teenage mom, you name it, judgment, that we still have to just drive forward to the awakening, our purpose, whether it's artistry, birthing that business, feeling free, just feeling free, that balance of life that you're trying to get. So that's the awakening. And then by the end of 2022, the third one will be coming out, Artist Paradise, Pieces of Life, Volume 3.
Wow.
So that is going to be released soon.
It sounds like sounds like congratulations are in order here, because that's like pretty amazing. I met you through the pandemic, because I met you that way. I attended one of your wonderful workshops on publishing. And it was done virtually. Well, tell our viewers about your workshops that are absolutely inspirational. I know, because I took the class.
Thank you. It was so, I love the audiences. Every class I teach, every workshop, it's just, the people are just amazing. I'm so thankful to have met you, and crossed paths with you and kept in touch.
And
that was in the winter. That was like February, or
I know, right?
April 1. Either way, that was months and months ago. And so what happened with self-publishing, and how those, it's actually a two-part workshop, because you can't fit it all into one. That came about before The Awakening. It was the year The Awakening was coming out. I sat on the committee for the city of Alexandria, the Poet Laureate Committee. And that is where we actually voted in our first African-American poet laureate ever. And poet laureates have been around since the 70s in the city of Alexandria. So 40-something years later, we finally got our first African-American woman at that. And on that committee, you never know who you're going to meet. That's why I tell people, be kind, no matter where you are. I'm just naturally kind. But you never know who is sitting in the room with you.
That's right.
And I knew I was sitting in the room with people from the library system, but not knowing I was sitting with the deputy, director of Alexandria City Public Libraries.
Wow.
She was one. We had the past poet laureate, Wendy Kaplan. She's the one that connected me with the deputy director and said, you need to meet Serena. She's a resident here. She's a poet. She's an author. And she should have her book signings at your libraries, or do a class or a workshop. At this time, I didn't have workshops. So I'm like, okay, Wendy's just saying workshops, all right. And the deputy director said, if I gave you space and time, would you teach a class on self-publishing? Because I think you have a lot to give. And you're a city resident, you're a parent, your child goes to, school here, and she was like, I think folks would really gravitate to your classes and workshops. And I said, I would love to, because I talk to people so much about self-publishing. It was just a matter of now pulling it together into a workshop. So Self-Publishing 101 came from ideas of folks saying, we'll give you time and space and a place, free of charge at that. So And we had my first workshop was at July 2019.
Wow.
And it was Self-Publishing 101. It was in person. It was a great time. And then from there, I started getting more contracts with libraries. Since then, we met through the Fairfax County Public Library. So, I'm doing it through organizations and, so I have Self-Publishing 101 and I have 201. And 201 came about in a class during the pandemic when the participants said, so when's the next class? I was like, well, unless you want to take this class again, this is it. And they said, no, we want more because we have so many questions. And I took all their questions and I turned it into 201. So I was like, these are questions I cannot, pack into or fit into 101. It's just too much already. And I took all those questions. I tell people I listen to my, the participants that come, and I put it into 201. Wow. So the Self-Publishing 101 and 201, I break down the process of how to self-publish your book and how to do it on a budget. I dispel the myths of self-publishing. I also talk about what to look out for, how to legally protect yourself as a self-published author. And it's always a great experience every time I teach those classes. And now I teach poetry classes.
I know.
That's the Love is Poetry series. And that was birthed out of the Fairfax County Public Libraries. I said, could you develop classes on poetry, but around the theme of love? We want to celebrate love. There's so much darkness going on in the world. And I said, sure. So I teach the different forms of poetry through the Love Is series.
Oh, Serena, you're pretty amazing.
Thank you.
You really are. And what we're showing right now are ways to stay in contact with Serena Wills. I mean, because you do so much, you're such a wonderful resource to all of us. And it's really so important. And she's from, I have to give it a plug, she's a fellow New Yorker.
Here we go. The first time I heard you speak, Ingrid, I was like, she's from New York. I was like, it was in my workshop, and I said, who is that person talking who unmuted? I was like, I know they're from New York, like the 5 boroughs.
Hilarious, hilarious.
It.
I'm telling you. But Serena, you're inspiring, and I hope our readers will take advantage. And you're just a resource. Everyone, go to her page, use her, paperclip it, so that way you know where to find her as a resource.
Yes. There we go. Pin it, favorite, everything.
Your favorite. Put it in your favorites bar. Thank you so much, Serena, for being on the show. We could continue to talk to you for quite a while, but most importantly, thank you for this wonderful book, Crying Tears of Teal.
I'm so glad you have it in your hands. It's an honor to just send it to you. I'm glad.
And it's signed. I have a signed copy. So, and I really love it. I do.
I'm glad. Thank you.
So my inspirational words this time quote comes from Toni Morrison. At some point in life, the world's beauty becomes enough. You don't need to photograph, paint, or even remember it. It is enough. Thank you so much for watching the television show, and connect with me on Facebook and at ingridsworld.org, or watch it on YouTube at Ingrid's World LLC, because we'd love to have you interact with us. Thanks again, Serena Wills, for a wonderful, wonderful interview. And everyone,
Very welcome.
Let's stay in touch and be a blessing to someone today. Thanks for watching.